So you have a problem with your glass. It's raining just a little bit, and every time your wipers pass.
That time he was considered cause celeb to the religious nationalist movement and kind of a political prisoner in Israel. And that was the main bookstore where settlers could get messianic texts and so forth. So he's a hero to a certain constituency in Israel. And through the Adelson bribery network, Miriam and Sheldon Adelson, Donald Trump was basically paid to release him. He was sentenced to life in prison. Jonathan Pollard was sentenced to life in prison for some of the most damaging intelligence thefts in U.S. history. He was a naval intelligence analyst. He did this for ideological reasons because he believed he was an Israel firster. And he handed over the methods that the NSA used to collect intelligence to the Mossad, as well as a list of thousands of intelligence contacts, collaborators, undercover spies, the knock list that U.S. intelligence used to Tel Aviv. He did this in exchange for money, but for ideological reasons. Ultimately, Donald Trump released him, and Sheldon Adelson flew him back to Israel on his personal jet, where he is now sort of a hero. And for some reason, Mike Huckabee last July, what I call the Israeli-U.S. reciprocal ambassador, decided to meet with Jonathan Pollard in his office. And this came as news to me, but it also came as news to the White House and to the CIA. None of them knew about this. And this should be a fireable offense, considering what Pollard did to the United States. I mean, this is Aldrich Ames level spying. This is treachery. He is a traitor. What was Huckabee doing with him? No U.S. ambassador has previously met with him, but it does appear that Huckabee has ideological kinship with Jonathan Pollard. Huckabee is a Pollardite. And if Huckabee isn't fired for this, we have to ask, in what world, in what political movement, in what White House does he not get fired? It's one that believes in MEGA, making Israel great again.
Well, it wasn't on his schedule, and the press knew nothing about it. I didn't know about it until you told us a little while ago, and then I looked it up, and it just came out, I guess, in the past few days. So Huckabee must have known he needed to keep this secret from the CIA, from other embassy employees, and from the White House. I bet he didn't keep it secret from Benjamin Netanyahu.
Well, he didn't keep it secret from other figures in the Trump administration because it looks like they went to the New York Times. 3 current senior officials confirmed this to the New York Times. So it looks like this is an internal problem. And it's something that I've been seeing from inside the Trump administration. There are still forces in the Trump administration that are Mossad stenographers.
You know, Mike Huckabee, and I know over time that a journalist who puts Israel can put that other country first and expect
and lobbied on behalf of the Jewish federations for more money to support Israel during its genocide. Before that, under Obama, Daniel Shapiro, he stayed in Israel with his family when his term ended, and went on to lobby for the NSO group, which produces Pegasus spyware. You had David Friedman from the first Trump ambassador to Israel. This is a figure who has a part-time residence, I think, in the settlement of Bet El, is part of the Friends of Bet El, raises money for the illegal settlements from the U.S., is a complete Israel firster. I mean, he wakes up in the morning, maybe eats some cereal, and then lobbies for Israel. That's what he does with his life. But what Huckabee has done here is an act of just such naked treason, or to associate and welcome, and as someone who betrayed the United States at such a high level, that I don't understand how Trump can protect him anymore unless Trump is that fully invested himself in the Israel First program, or that this would be just too embarrassing for him. It's really Trump at this point. He has to choose between Adelson and the CIA.
Well, how does Huckabee explain this to the White House now, which he must have done by now since the time the New York Times piece appeared?
It was like Pollard was like crashing some party, or he
happens to be the United States ambassador to the UN. Why were Danny Danon, that thug that is the Israeli ambassador to the UN, and Mike Waltz embraced bracing each other on the floor of the Security Council earlier this week.
Yeah, a really tragic moment in the history of the UN as the Gaza Master Plan passed. And this is a plan to essentially internationalize the occupation of Gaza and a Trojan horse for permanent Israeli control and a colonial program that I can explain in a little bit more detail in a minute, but which was approved, voted for by the one Arab state on the Security Council in a non-permanent role, Algeria, and the one Muslim state in a non-permanent role, Pakistan. Two countries that had feigned concern for Gaza for the last 2 years. And then behind them, you have
do not get a consolidation loan until you see this. Hey, Mario Lopez here, and did you know there's a
Turkey, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, the so-called the Arabs and the Muslim states that are vying for a role as part of this international stabilization force, which is really a pacification force whose mission will be to disarm Palestinian resistance factions and put Palestinians at the mercy of the Israeli army, but behind an international flag. Now, Turkey has said that disarming Hamas without ending the occupation would be a red line. So why do they want to be involved in this? Have they spoken out against this resolution? Now you have the two permanent members that would normally veto such a thing, Russia and China. They both abstained. Russia's abstention, I think, will be as consequential, if not more, than its abstention on the vote to declare Libya a no-fly zone, which was part of what convinced Putin to run for president again, because that was during the time of Medvedev. What explains the Russian and Chinese votes, given that they harshly condemned the resolution and offered the same analysis that I just did, that it's a Trojan horse for reoccupation, that it will violate international law and so forth? They claim that they couldn't abstain, they couldn't actually veto it when you have all of the Palestinian Authority this vote. So what you've seen is the complete betrayal of Gaza by the Arab and Muslim world, and Russia and China failing to step in because I guess they don't want to complicate their relations with Turkey and Egypt and all these other mid-level powers. And Gaza is now at the mercy of what Jared Kushner called the master plan, which I can explain, but which is essentially a colonial divide and conquer plan that continues the genocide under international cover.
And will this master plan permit Jared Kushner to become the development for the very valuable waterfront real estate?
I should actually clarify, it was Steve Witkoff who referred to it as a master plan in a 60 Minutes interview, and Jared Kushner was seated beside him, and he grimaced with so much agony because Witkoff had let the cat out of the bag.
Didn't the vice president let the cat out of the bag in a similar environment where he referred to Kushner as the investor?
Yeah. I mean, Kushner is the investor in a company that has proposed Gaza seafront real estate. Kushner has himself referred to Gaza as ideal waterfront real estate property. So absolutely, Kushner is interested in the master plan. If you look at the map right now, there's this yellow line that Israel has set up, preventing Palestinians from reaching the arable areas that used to be agricultural land. It cuts them off from everywhere east of Gaza City, all the way down to east of Khan Yunis. Rafah is completely destroyed in the south, so there's this giant buffer, and Israel's occupying that as well as the Netzarim corridor. And that yellow line confines the population of Gaza into basically a concentration camp where Israel and the United States military, through its new Civil Military Coordination Center in the Israeli city of Kiryat Gat, control all the access points for aid. They're dumping cell phones into Gaza today. There are images of tons of cell phones being offloaded into Gaza for obvious reasons, spying and spreading destabilization. Then what Israel's going to do is, in those areas where they're carrying out demolitions, where Palestinians are not allowed to go, where they're being killed if they go, outside the yellow line, which is 58% of the Gaza Strip, they're going to create these so-called model cities. We've seen the maps for them in the Boston Consulting Group plans, and really like gated Gaza Strip. To do is, in those areas where they're carrying out demolitions, where Palestinians are not allowed to go, where they're being killed if they go, outside the yellow line, which is 58% of the Gaza Strip, they're going to create these so-called model cities. We've seen the maps for them in the Boston Consulting Group plans, and they're really like gated communities where everything will be digitized, like the nightmare that everyone who opposed the COVID lockdowns had of 20-minute cities and globalist control. It will be fulfilled there. Everyone will be living in these biometric gated communities. Businesses will be blacklisted that do not comply with Israel, and those that are whitelisted will be run by future warlords. And the United Arab Emirates will be one of the Arab authorities administering things financially, but cash will be virtually this will be sort of a cashless society. Everything will be digitized and tokenized, biometric. Everyone will be under mass surveillance. And then anyone who remains back in the areas that were controlled by resistance factions, Palestinian grassroots factions, they will be subjected to more starvation sieges and continuous bombardment unless they move to the model areas. That's the future of the master plan until they get those areas on the waterfront for Jared Kushner and his buddies.
Gee, I wonder who will build the digital infrastructure. Probably the same people that threw you out. Palantir, probably the same people that threw you out of that conference where you tried to question them.
Well, Palantir has been heavily involved by the admission of its CEO, Alex Karp, who was just at the U.S. Saudi Investment Forum at the Kennedy Center down the street 2 days ago. Alex Karp has boasted about his role in providing Israel with targeting assistance through Palantir's Maven system. And participating openly in the genocide. And in the Boston Consulting Group plans for the so-called master plan, various multinational corporations, tech corporations, were put forward for contracts. Oracle, Amazon, Palantir being just among a few of those that control our media in the United States and our administration.
Wow. I want to get to Venezuela and the CIA's cocaine business with you because you've just done some extraordinary reporting on it. But before we do, I'd like you to watch this clip from John Kiriakou. Full disclosure, John's a friend of mine. John is a former CIA agent. He is the only person who went to jail over the Bush-Cheney torture regime. And of course, he went to jail because he revealed the identity of the torturers, not because he participated in it, which of course he condemned. But what he is saying here to a podcaster whose name I don't know, you'll probably recognize him, one of these young, wildly popular podcasters, is truly extraordinary about why the United States bombed Iran at the behest of Benjamin Netanyahu. Chris, number 3.
The reason, though, I'm told, that Donald Trump decided to bomb Iran was that the Israelis said, for the first time, if you don't bomb Iran to take out these deep bunkers, we're going to use nuclear weapons. And they had never threatened that before. And so Trump said, bombing Iran might actually save us from the start of World War III if it keeps the Israelis from using nuclear weapons.
So according to your source, the Israelis told the president of the United States that if he did not use the United States military power to bomb the nuclear facilities in Iran, Israel, acting on its own, would use nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Do you see why there's a problem with that statement, John?
Yeah.
Because they've never admitted that they've had them.
That's right.
So you're telling me that they just admitted to the president of the United States that they have nuclear weapons and we still do not have them in the IAEA treaty?
I mean, if Israeli nuclear whistleblowers are to be believed, yeah, they've had them. They started working on them in the 50s. They got them around the late 60s or the early 70s. Look at Mordechai Vanunu.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he wasn't charged for treason for nothing.
Here's a hot take. If you have a message inside you that people are meant to hear, it'll never make the impact that it truly deserves.
Is this credible, Max?
It is. I mean, we're talking about everything today. We're talking about cocaine, nukes, spies.
That's because of you. You are a wealth of knowledge about all these things.
Well, I can't imagine that young podcaster I've never seen before could be more popular than you if you're running the gamut like this. And yeah, I mean,
I have to grow my hair a lot longer.
I wish I could. Well, and John's looking great, by the way.
Yes.
I mean, I've been following
what
him
he's been
for
through.
years. He knows what he's talking about, and he's basing this on not just speculation, but things we know. Jonathan Pollard, remember I mentioned him before, we talked about him before, the Israeli spy who was in U.S. naval intelligence.
Right.
He gave an interview fairly recently to a fellow settler on a podcast in Israel. And he said that back in 1973, we were on the ropes. And when he says we, even though he was in the U.S., he's referring to the Israelis. The Egyptians had broken across the Sinai and were marching towards Israel proper. The Syrians were attacking from the north, and they wanted Nixon to resupply them with an emergency airlift to save Israel. And so the Israelis took U.S. officials to an airfield, showed them an A-4 jet packed with nuclear weapons, and said, if you do not authorize the emergency airlift, we will use nuclear weapons. And so Pollard is openly boasting about nuclear blackmail carried out by Israel back in 1973. That's what John Kiriakou is referring to. That's Israel's ace card. It's what Seymour Hersh called the Samson option. And the program was exposed by Mordechai Vanunu, one of the bravest whistleblowers in history, who was tortured for decades by Israel for what he did. He was a former worker at the Dimona facility.
Wow. Does the CIA traffic in cocaine?
Well, I referred to them in a debate 2 days ago on Piers Morgan with the former U.S. ambassador James Story and a former CIA agent who was sort of made famous by Joe Rogan, Mike Baker. I referred to them as the Cocaine Import Agency. The CIA was directly responsible for creating the so-called Cartel of the Suns that is now said to be under the control of Nicolas Maduro, was just named last week by Marco Rubio a narco-terrorist organization to justify striking Venezuela on land, possibly assassinating its leadership. And it's a completely fake construct that was created by the CIA in the early 90s to ship 22 tons of cocaine into the US. Now, why would they do that? They thought that this would allow them to surveil the drug running networks through the United States, identify who's selling the drugs, but they wound up poisoning our society, as Marco Rubio claims. And this was just sort of, this is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the CIA being involved with cartels. The DEA agent who actually realized that the CIA was involved with the Guadalajara cartel in the 1980s and was using the cash to fund black operations run by Ali North in Central America, was named Kiki Camarena. And what happened to him? He was tortured for days, tortured to death by Guadalajara cartel members in the presence of Felix Rodriguez, the notorious CIA agent who back in the early 60s presided over the execution of Che Guevara. This is all pretty well documented stuff. But then we have figures in U.S. federal prisons like Genaro Garcia Luna, who was the most powerful law enforcement security official in Mexico for years under the administrations of Vicente Fox and Felipe Calderon. These are like the two key U.S. allies from the PAN and PRI parties, from the PAN party in Mexico. And the U.S. knew about this. State Department officials knew that Garcia Luna was colluding with the Sinaloa cartel